Moats, and today I'm going to be talking to you about Mother Teresa. The title of my presentation is called The Little Pencil, Mother Teresa's Journey to Becoming a Modern Hero. So my thesis statement that I'm going to be supporting throughout this presentation is Mother Teresa is a shining example of what attributes a modern hero should encompass, a giver of love, kindness, and empathy. So I'm going to start by talking about her early life. Her given name at birth was Agnes Gonksa, and that's her last name. She was born in Skopje to two Albanian parents. Last class we kind of had a little history lesson about everything and it being now in northern Macedonia, so I'm not going to go over that again. Her father's name was Nikola and her mother's name was Dranenvile. Her birthday was August 26, 1910. However, she told everyone that her birthday was August 27th, and she did this because that was actually the day that she was christened. And so it wasn't until much later in life that she admitted to an American friend that her real birthday was actually on the 26th of August. So throughout her life, it was always celebrated the 27th. Her siblings' names were Aga and Lazar. Aga was a female that was older, and Lazar was a brother that was younger. She came from a very typical family home. Her dad was a wealthy businessman that dabbled in politics, and he was away all day at work, and her mom stayed home keeping the house clean, keeping the kids fed, cooking, and that sort of thing. Much like the United States until the 1960s, 70s-ish. The dad was away at work, the mom was home, and then the mom made sure that her and the kids were cleaned up, showered, nice new clothes were put on. So when the dad came home, that wasn't a stressor to him that they looked disarrayed. And so this is pretty much what her life was like until she was about 8 years old, almost 9. Her father, Nikola, was traveling about 160 miles to a political event in Belgrade with some fellow councilmen. It has been said that he left in perfect health condition. However, he returned home in a carriage very ill. He was rushed to the hospital and they found that he was hemorrhaging internally with no known cause. The family stated throughout the rest of their lives, as well as the medical team that worked on him that day, that they believe he was poisoned with something that was causing his blood to thin, which is why he was hemorrhaging. So unfortunately, he died when he was only 45 and when Mother Teresa was only 8 years old. So this is actually how Mother Teresa became pretty known in poverty. With her father's death and all of his businesses, there was no documentation of what was to happen if something were to happen to him. So all of his businesses were liquidated and his business partners took all the money and left his wife and kids with nothing. So after his death, all they had was their house. However, it was said by the brother that they still lived in a very peaceful home. Their mother made sure that they knew that monetarily things didn't really matter and that it was about kindness, compassion, and love. So this is sort of where Mother Teresa's spark began, with poverty and kindness. She has a very known quote that she went on to say for decades to come, and it's called, "It's home is where the mother is." And that's because most of the time that she was alive in her home, it was just with her mother. Okay, so becoming Mother Teresa. By age 12, Mother Teresa, at the time Agnes, felt a calling to God. At 18, she left home to join the Sisters of Loreto. This was in Dublin, Ireland, and it was a community of nuns that missioned in India. She stayed there for several months learning to become a nun, and she left to go permanently to India in May of 1931, and this is where she took her vows to become a nun. And this is when she was given the name Mother Teresa. When she was in India, she spent most of her time in Calcutta. This is how we spell it, and most of the literature still spells it. Even the biography that was written by one of her good American friends, this is how she spelled it in it. You'll see later on it's spelled with a K, but it's still the same place. So from 1931 to 1948, she taught at St. Mary's High School in Calcutta. She enjoyed her time there, educating the students. However, she felt a deeper calling to what she was seeing going on outside the schools. Outside the very walls of the school, she could see all of the poor people that were in the slums, and she just felt that there was something that she was being called to do out there and not inside the schools. So in 1948, she got permission from her superiors to leave the Covenant School and devote her life to the poorest of the slums. At this time, she had absolutely no funds to do this. She quit her job as a teacher and just went outside and started living amongst the people and being with them and smiling with them, asking them how she could help them. She believed that she would be provided for by divine providence, and that she was for many years. Her first work there was an open air school where she started to teach the poor that couldn't be actually in school, just on the streets. And for many years, like I said, she did live off of divine providence until she could get some partnerships and volunteers and people to help her with donations. In 1950, the Bishop of Rome gave her permission to start the Missionaries of Charity. This was her own denomination that she was in charge of, and this is what started to support her work that she was doing with the slums, for lack of better terms. But this was a way that they could have something that people could donate to and people could know where their money was going, not just to Mother Teresa and the poor. They had an actual name attached to it. The primary task of the Missions of Charity was to love and care for those persons nobody was prepared to look after. And that is a direct quote from her. In 1965, Pope Paul VI declared it an international religious family to the Catholic Charities. It now has many branches of not just other nuns, but also brothers of the church and priests, and it's currently active in 133 different countries in the world. So the Mission of Charities did a lot of work. Some of the most common things that people think of when they think of Mother Teresa is her helping the outcasts of different diseases, such as HIV and AIDS, leprosy, and tuberculosis, also known as TB in slang terms. These are diseases that at the time we didn't know much about, especially in the 50s and 60s, but we knew that these people were really sick and that they couldn't be around other people because they were also going to get them sick. So especially the poor, there was no way for them to get help. So what she did was bring them in and put them in houses and homes, and sort of lump them together with their disease, because she knew that what she thought at the time was that this was the safest places for them to be and for her to help them. Now the Missionaries of Charity also has soup kitchens, mobile clinics. It offers children and family counseling in areas that really don't even believe in counseling. So that's pretty progressive now that they're able to offer that. They also have schools and orphanages, which are two of the first things that were acquired under the Missionaries of Charity. They also have dispensaries where people can get items they need, like clothing, school supplies, and that sort of thing. The next couple slides are just a few pictures of her actively being out on the streets with the poor, and now at this point in buildings that she's created with the Missionaries of Charity. So I just kind of want you to take some time to look at these, because most of the time the people that she's helping in these images are people that you and I would probably see on the street and not even look at. And one of Mother Teresa's biggest things is that if we as people can just smile to somebody who looks like they need it, that we're gonna change their life. So that's kind of what I want you guys to think about when you look at these. Okay, so in 1979, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. And here are some direct quotes taken from their website on why they believe she should have been the winner. In the making of the award, the Norwegian Nobel Committee has expressed its recognition of Mother Teresa's work in bringing help to those suffering humanity. This year, the world has turned its attention to the plight of children and refugees, and these are precisely the categories for whom Mother Teresa has for many years worked so selflessly. They also went on to say that they place special emphasis on the spirit that has inspired her activities, and which is the tangible expression of her personal attitude and human qualities. When she accepted the speech, she gave a really lengthy, 25-minute lecture to everyone about, caring for others, and that she believes that happiness starts in the homes, and that if more of us focused on our own families, whether it be our parents, our siblings, or if our parents focused on their children more, that it would start in the home, that we need to spread happiness to others around us, and thus would go on to help our problem of achieving world peace. So becoming a saint. She became a saint in September 6th, 2017, so that's actually relatively, was close to where we are now, only 2 years ago. So I'm going to go over the qualifications of how she became one and the 2 miracles that occurred that let her become one. One of the starter criterion for sainthood is for the person in question to dedicate their life to the service of God. Upon the person's death, an investigation can be launched to verify whether their life met the standards expected to become a saint. If they do, the relevant bishop will ask the congregation for the causes of saints for permission to begin the case for sainthood. So in this case, it's the Pope that's going to determine at the very end whether they do or do not become a saint. It is widely agreed that Mother Teresa did indeed dedicate her life to serving of God and those of helping others. And I'll go on a little bit later to talk a little bit more about her exact relationship with God. The next step for the congregation is for the causes of saints to look into the life of the nominee. If they deem it of heroic virtue, then the Pope can declare the individual vulnerable. To become a saint, a person must have either died a martyr or have performed a miracle of some sort which cannot be explained by modern medicine. So we talked about this a little bit last class or 2 classes ago when we brought up Mother Teresa and what it takes to be a saint. So her first miracle was reported a recovery of a woman from a stomach tumor overnight in Calcutta. So this is the other spelling of Calcutta that you'll see in literature. But like I said, even the books written, her biographies by a close friend, it's spelled the way that we spell it. Nuns at the Missionary of Charity prayed for Mother Teresa to cure the woman. Following the recognition of the miracle, it was in 2003, a ceremony was attended by thousands. So basically, a woman had a tumor in her stomach. She wasn't supposed to live for it. Nuns prayed, Mother Teresa, please come seek this woman, please help her. And then the tumor was gone. Her second one, so it takes 2, and her second miracle came in 2008 when a Brazilian man had an abscess on his brain, and he apparently placed a picture of Mother Teresa beside him and was praying to it, and his abscess was also cured as well. So based on these 2 events and all the steps that I mentioned earlier, she was able to be eligible for sainthood, and the Pope did deem her a saint in 2017. So she does, of course, have critics because, everyone does. Most people and their issues with her was her untidy care that was being delivered and unsafe medical practices. So a lot of these critics came from a later date, more recent. So obviously what we know now, even in America, the medicine we practice is very different than what was being practiced in the 50s and 60s. So a lot of things that they're saying is they would reuse needles on people and just wash them out with water. Well, they didn't have, everything that she had was by donation. So she was making use of what she had. She didn't really have an option because she was just trying to provide care to as many as possible and not turn anybody away. Because as mentioned earlier, the care she was providing to people was care to those who were being turned away by people who were not in the slums. There are a few articles that state their biggest problem with Mother Teresa is that when she was ill, she would go and receive medical treatment, take medications, antibiotics, pain medicine of sorts, and that she herself spoke that all it took was prayer to be healed. However, she apparently took medications herself. And some of the biggest problems was the HIV and AIDS. We know now in the United States what all that is and that it can't be cured and different things of that sort. But it wasn't until the 1980s in the United States that we really even knew how to handle AIDS. So a lot of times people criticized her for her care to those with AIDS and how she was just spreading it and giving it to other people. But back then, she was just trying to provide care to everyone that was ill. It wasn't a malicious attack trying to infest other people with AIDS. It was just her being selfless and being empathetic to those who were ill. So in my humble opinion, I believe that Mother Teresa is exactly what a modern hero should be. You know, she's selfless, she was giving, she was empathetic, she showed compassion and love. And I think that in today's world especially, that's where we lack the most. You know, we're really quick to judge others and have an opinion and disclude those that don't agree with us, but that's never what she did. She didn't turn people away who didn't believe in God. She brought them in and tried to make them be comfortable in religion, and taught them how to pray and taught them how to care for themselves. So I think that Mother Teresa really does exhibit what it takes to be a modern hero. So you might have noticed that my title was The Little Pencil, was the beginning of it, and this is a very well-known quote by her, and it is, "I am a little pencil in God's hands. He does the thinking, he does the writing, he does everything, and sometimes it's really hard because it's a broken pencil and he has to sharpen it a little more." So this is a very well-known quote that she used in many different variations. A lot of times this is what she would say when she was receiving praise, because she never believed that she should be receiving praise, because everything she was doing was God's work. She was just listening to a call that she had from him, and she was going and trying to help these people because it's what God told her to do. So anytime she would receive praise, like I said, she would give some variation of this quote or say something as simple as, "I'm just a little pencil. I don't do the writing." And I think, again, that goes to show her humility and everything that she did really for the world and where we are today. That is it. Any questions?